Good morning, good afternoon.
Hi, go
Hello.
ahead.
Bobby jumped the gun there. Hello, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew, and good morning. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. And today we have not one, but two co-founders of one company. And also we'll explain a little bit more about their relationship as well, which is fascinating. But welcome, Bobby. Welcome out, Michael. Nice to see you both.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Happy to have you on.
No problem. And we'll get into why Michael's got a very large bird behind his head. If you're watching this on YouTube, but obviously his t-shirt and his sweatshirt is a bit of a giveaway. But yeah, firstly, I wanted to say that this is actually the reason why I met Bobby and Michael recently is because my good friend Sam Benny, who's one of our previous guests, actually introduced me to Bobby and Michael recently. And when I spoke to specifically Bobby recently, she explained a bit about the background and what you're working on. And I thought this is like an absolute fantastic episode. We've got to get them on the G&T sessions. So here we are today. So yeah, I mean, when G&T sessions, as we know, for people who've been listening before, it's about growth, it's about technology, it's about we're gifted and talented people. And when I look at some of the stats from your website about what you've been working on, during the day, is it during the day and during the night? then it's kind of like, wow. So I suppose first question would be, Bobby, could you maybe just introduce yourself and explain where you're joining from today, and then we'll cover over to Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Bobbi Michael. I'm the CEO of Falcons AI. We're an artificial intelligence company, and our primary product that we're working on right now is NSFW image detection. So basically explicit or pornographic images. Calling in today from the U.S. on the East Coast and South Carolina.
Welcome. Thanks for the little. Well, I will ask you about the FLAs there, the four-letter acronym, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a second. Michael, welcome.
Yep. So my name is Mike Stottleman. I am obviously Bobby's husband and the CTO of Falcons AI. We developed a wildly adopted NSFW model. We posted it to Hugging Face, and it has over 300 million downloads. And so we decided to monetize that by releasing the model to go on device. And when I grow up, I want to be just like Andrew Turner.
Save the compliments till later, Michael. Save the compliments till later.
It might feel differently by the end of this.
Yeah, exactly. You're not survived the episode yet. You're going in for value too early, compliments too early.
Yeah.
So where I know that you've obviously your connection's a bit kind of up and down, but hopefully people who will listen to this on Spotify or Apple can listen to it and hear it. But whereabouts are you joining from? Because you're not in the same place as Bobby.
Yes, I'm in Cairo, Egypt right now. Lovely place, very picturesque.
Okay, so you basically sat next to a falcon, near the pyramids. Is that what you say? Is that near the Sphinx?
Yes, we're flying over the pyramids right now. Got like a.
Oh, it's an immersive. It's going to be an immersive episode. This is going to be, is it?
Absolutely, that's the plan.
Quick, put your Picos on. Put your Oculus on.
Right. Go VR mode.
So one of the things that when I spoke to Bobby before we did the session today was and obviously if anybody's listened and paid attention to your surnames amazingly are the same, right? So that could either explain one thing. You're either in the same family and your brother and sister, but I think that's not the answer.
That's not
because
the answer.
I believe you have a different relationship. So I think you mentioned that you are husband and wife. Is that right?
This is correct.
I suppose my first question is, I mean, I know there's this thing about, meeting somebody that you want to spend as a life partner, but doing a startup as well. I mean, that's brutal. That's like 300. It's like a Trojan kind of story. That is, I mean, it's like being married is hard enough, but then actually being married and do a startup at the same time. So what was the trigger for that? Can I just ask that question? Because probably anybody that's listening to this episode will be going, wow, I usually kind of want to work and then I want to go home and I want to decompress, but then I presume you've managed it obviously because you've been doing well. But could you explain a bit of that? Let the ladies' perspective first, please. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, first I just want to say they say in relationships the toughest thing that you can do is travel together or start a business together. So we're overachievers. We want to win at marriage, so we travel together all the time, and obviously we've started a business together as well. So no, that's being funny. But I guess Michael, if you want to give a more serious response,
Yeah. So I mean,
he's
no,
usually
I
the
feel
funny
like
one, so I had to get it in.
right. No, I feel like I feel like when you meet somebody and you do have that connection and you do speak the same language, it's a lot easier to do a lot more things with. So there's a lot of things that I don't have to ask her, or like we really don't have to communicate on, because we just kind of function that way. And so that's kind of what made starting the business per se easier, is because she knows how I am, like daily. She knows my routines, things like that, and I'm the same with her. So I know that there are things that are going to slide off my plate that I don't even have to tell her that she's going to pick up, and vice versa. So I think those are the benefits. Everybody jokes about, oh my God, man cave, and I need to spend time away from my wife and a guy's trip. And that's fine if that's how you are, but for me it's just it's better working with her. And also I can avoid some certain harassment charges if they were to arise.
No, but it's kind of like I mean, what I was just reflecting is a bit like. I mean, there's definitely if you're with a life partner, then it's obviously you would hope there's a connection there on a number of different dimensions. I suppose it takes it to that new level where you're actually working in a business together, because you're kind of like. And I mean, I suppose there's a very good other example. I suppose that maybe with his beard, maybe he's trying to, it's Alex Hormozy. Maybe he's trying to do an emulation of him. You're Layla. I don't know, but they're a very, very successful combination. Well, actually, that's interesting because she's the CEO and he's not the CEO, isn't it, in that combination as well, the Hormozys. So one up for female leadership. And no, I mean, I don't know. In terms of language, I suppose, and behaviour, then I suppose you kind of you understand each other's cycle. Is that right? And the cadence and how the behaviour and the reactions, is that because you know each other so well? Is that what you see as a superpower?
Absolutely. So if you look at like any of the high performing sports teams, they just kind of understand where the other player is going to be at that time, and they're so in sync because they practice so much together. And so that's kind of what I liken it to. Like we just don't even, they're just certain signals that you just give off, and the other person can pick them up. And so that's kind of the massive benefit that I feel like doesn't get a lot of credit when you start talking about couples in business together. They can be so much more in lockstep than just people that have been working together for a year or 2 years or 10 years or whatever.
That's cool.
For me,
I feel we complement each other quite well in our backgrounds from our career. So Michael is a technophile, if ever there was one. He's always on the latest trends, always tinkering and working on things. Whereas, well, I have a background in technology, so I understand it quite well. I'm comfortable with it, I understand how it works. But I've always been more on the business side of it, from dealing with users, dealing with customers, things like that, and the day-to-day operations, all the boring stuff.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, so you kind of like naturally had that kind of like different path, but then you could join together, and the sum of the parts is bigger than the whole kind of thing, isn't it? I suppose. No, it's interesting. No, I mean, all power to you. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really, really fantastic. And when I was looking at your website as well, I mean, by the way, I love on their website, just for people that's not been there, falcons.ai. Apart from obviously, I think I saw a few falcons on it. They're obviously not a wildlife, they're not a bird sanctuary, by the way. They're an AI company. But you know the thing where you move the cursor around your website and it's like it's got this fire. It's like it like kind of follows you. Yeah, it's like wow.
Yeah, I deployed that. I deployed that probably like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I really like the effect. So thank you for that.
Yeah, because normally you can't. You lose your cursor, and you've got no hope of losing your cursor when there's this like.
Increase our time on page.
Yeah, exactly.
Playing with
your dwell time. Everybody's trying to write the name in the fire. Yeah, exactly. I'm on fire. I'm on fire. There's that famous song in it, whatever's on fire. Yeah, I don't know. We're not going to digress down that rabbit hole. But the interesting thing I saw, and I know you touched on some of this thing right at the beginning, was some of the stats you put on that website. I mean, can you just go through them again and what they are? Because I know you kind of rattled them off, because you probably say them every day to people, but can you just explain some of the dimensions of your business and what's been going on? Because obviously I understand you're playing in the open source space, but also you're commercializing it as well. And also you've got a geographic focus and you've got a focus around certain use cases. Can you just explain a little bit about that? Because it's just like, it blew my mind, some of the stats you shared last week, Bobbi. And I was thinking, And then you look on your website and you go, oh my God, amazing.
Yeah, so for the geographic focus, we founded the company originally while we were living in the UAE. But we are an AI company. We're working on very varied and different kinds of AI projects and putting things out onto Hugging Face, which is the big open source platform, obviously, for AI models. So, several of our models have gotten quite a lot of traction, but the one in particular has been kind of mind blowing even for us. So it's the not safe for work NSFW image detection. So that has, I think, over 325 million. I haven't checked it in a couple of days. It might be higher. 325 million downloads at this point, and continuing to grow. So from that, of course, it is open source, so it is being used publicly we found it in over 400 public GitHub repositories. So there's no telling how many private repositories are utilizing it. Clarify, who is a leader in the content moderation space, has picked it up, and they have it layered into their image detection to help with detecting NSFW imagery. Replicate.com is hosting it on their platform for people to access via a paid API, and it's got over 60 million runs there. Additionally, so you may have, if you're into AI, you may have heard of Black Forest Labs and their Flux generative models. They also use it layered into their image generation models to keep them NSFW compliant as well. So I think if you look on Hugging Face right now, I think we're number 2 or at least top 5 in most downloaded models in the past 30 days. So if you think that's more than DeepSeek, that's more than a lot.
Manus,
so basically,
more than Manus.
we're
Yep.
yeah. So we're up there with Meta AI models, BERT transformer models. So we're pretty stoked about that. Yeah.
That's
I'll
amazing.
I'll tell you a funny story about the origin of the name. So when we first got to the UAE, we were at a hunting and fishing exhibition in Abu Dhabi. And I was speaking with a gentleman, and he was talking about that they have falcon hunting and falcon races. And I never heard of that. And so we were just talking, and I told him I work with AI, or I work in AI. And he was asking me, could I develop a model that could predict the race winner? And so I told him no, but I could develop a model, his birds and their data and how they performed at various tracks to, give him kind of insight on which bird to take to which track. So he did that. And then when we were starting the company, we were looking for a name. And that's when Bobbi told, why not Falcons AI? You just did that model to, predict the falcon races. So that's kind of the origin story of how we got the name. And it actually fit for the region too, because obviously, the moniker over there is the Falcon. So it kind of all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, and also obviously, I don't know if it's true, but I don't know which bird has got the best eyesight. Is it the falcon, or is it the eagle? I don't know. It's that kind of space, isn't it? In a way, you've got a.
Correct.
I presume it's the kind of the visual eye concept as well. Was that the
absolutely
part of the kind of idea?
That's
as well?
Why the majority. Yeah, you're right. So that's why the majority of our products, and I think the area where we excel in is computer vision. Things like that.
And just a quick question. I mean, so to get that much adoption, how long has it taken you to get that adoption then of that many downloads? Has it been like months, or has it been years, or how long have you been operating or made that model available?
So that model was original. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No. You can go ahead.
That particular model was originally posted to Hugging Face in, I think it was September of 2023. So within the first year, we hit 20 million downloads. It really just, January of this year, 2025, it just started going, really, really gaining in popularity. So since the beginning of 2025, we've seen about 2 to 3 million downloads per day.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
but I
think
I suppose that thing about traction.
The generative images.
Sorry, say again?
I'm sorry, generative images.
Yeah.
I think the proliferation of
the explosion,
on-device image gen, all of that, people deploying their own image generators. I think that's where the majority of the adoption comes in, because now you put yourself or your company at risk for generating these types of images.
And just a quick question. So the way that you apply that model is effectively, do you connect to their internal systems, and you constantly are scanning for the compliance to the model? Is that how it works? What's the idea? How does it actually operate?
So there's two things to consider. So we have our open source model, which is available on Hugging Face, and people are using that in a variety of ways because it's just the vision model that does the detection. So as Michael said, people are using it to keep their image generator safe. People are using it for marketplaces. Anytime you have user generated content and you want to keep what they're uploading safe, if people are downloading it into their companies, checking email and stuff. So we are also working on a version 2, so to speak, of that model, which will not only be better performing than our open source model, but also we're building a custom model architecture, which I'm sure Michael will explain much better than I can, to get it onto device, and that will be available at the enterprise for companies to keep an eye on the actual image content that is come into their internal network to make sure that everything is being kept safe and on the up and up. So Michael, if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, so the new architecture that we're building out or that we have built out is basically it's a low power, low footprint model. So if you want to do like comparisons, the model available on Hugging Face is probably about 385 megs. The current model that we have deployed is 4 megabytes with the same level of accuracy. The next version will be sub megabyte level. And the reason for that is to be able to go on device specifically. So if you think about like CCT cameras, wearables,
Like on the
glasses,
edge, on the edge, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
100% truly edge, truly energy efficient, low footprint inferencing.
So
right?
For perspective, the size of the model itself is smaller than some of the pictures you have on your phone.
Correct.
Yeah, I spent a few decades in telco, so I understand about IoT and on edge and stuff like that quite well. Yeah, interesting. Oh, wow. So but this thing about models, right? So, there's been this kind of thing, this model, last year there was this model, what do you call it? Model league tables. My LLM's bigger than your LLM. My model's like more complex than your LLM. Look at the size of my model, blah, blah, blah. It's like you're in a bar or something, I've got a huge model. Look at the size of my model.
Right.
SLMs, LLMs, blah, 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 blah. Is that where, because obviously you've got huge traction in that kind of space, that amount of adoption is I mean, you're like the industry standard, it sounds like, from like a standing start for that particular use case. Is that
I mean, that's a fair assessment based on the adoption. I would say so.
I think that was a yes from both parties.
That's what we tell ourselves in the morning.
Well, when you have, I don't know. I'm not going to ask. So one of the things I was going to ask, because when I was over in UAE a number of years ago with the UK government, we went to Sharjah, and we went to UAE, we went to Abu Dhabi, and obviously Dubai, UAE. We met the Emirati, we met a lot of very senior people, the families and stuff like that. Obviously, that was sponsored by, the UK ambassador over there. And there was this is just before 2020, so 2019, before the whole crazy time had kicked off. What I took away from there was that they were extremely interested in, getting behind technology. So it's interesting that you've actually, is your global headquarters still in the UAE, or have you moved that somewhere else now? Or because it's interesting you've born. Sounds like you kind of like conceived the company, you could say, in the UAE. Is that something you're going to continue with, or is that something because there seems to be a lot of support locally for having UAE founded success stories that could scale globally, and that's think about the recent visit by Mr. Trump. It's even more magnified with what's happened in the last couple of weeks. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, our company was born there. We lived there for a few years. We really love the area, the people, the culture, and all of that. So we have moved our headquarters to the U.S. However, we're still committed to the region, and Michael's in Cairo right now. And so I don't think we'll still be definitely heavily involved in the area and committed to furthering the values and regional value for the UAE and the Middle East in general.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah,
interesting. I think I sense that they wanted to kind of like, support and help, to build. I mean, the analogy 5 years ago was like they wanted to build a Facebook in UAE. I said maybe not. That's maybe not a good choice, but a tech titan,
right.
An example of a tech titan or a FANG, not fangs,
Correct.
but I think you know what I'm saying.
I know. So
Yeah.
I feel like the UAE is leading, and it's specifically coming from the government. So if you look at what they did recently, where they were deployed, or they're in talks or in process of deploying an AI model for policy generation and regulation development, I think that is spectacular. I actually wrote my master's thesis on decision support systems for policy generation long time ago. But I think the fact that they were able to do that shows how far advanced they are. And that, like I said, that's specifically from like the government perspective. So if you have, a government that's, that far out front and trying to adopt and reap the benefits of these newer leading edge technologies faster, I think that's actually a key driver of, the economics and the excitement around AI in the region. So super fans of what the UAE government's doing there in the tech space. They are definitely visionaries.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at compared to others.
Yeah, no, it's good to see, because I think me being over there as well is I think there's a good attitude towards it, and they realise they're actually putting support behind it, not just talking about it, actually doing something about
Correct.
it as well, which is sometimes at a government and political level, not trying to be apolitical, not political, is that there's a lot of BS that happens in that kind of level, not enough action. A lot of
Right.
rhetoric,
No, I think
and not
you're
always a lot of
100%
follow through.
correct.
I think they're very much action oriented in that region.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. Me and Bobby speak all the time about, kind of being disheartened by, let's just say, the quality of decision making going on, right? Just globally. But, you have pockets that show that, there is leadership that is pushing for, advancement and better. And obviously that's definitely one of them. And it's undeniable based on, the visit last week, right?
Yeah, I mean, some people restore your faith in humanity, some people don't. I think that's the way I would describe it.
Correct.
So
I think it's on, us to navigate around that.
Exactly. So one of the things I also want to congratulate you on. So I have, I feel like I've contributed to the world. So I've brought 2 sons into this world, and was part of the process of bringing 2 sons into the world, you could say. Now, I can't take sole responsibility for it, but I believe that you kind of been going for a world record in that area as well. So can you just explain to the audience about your kind of little football team that you nearly got, or full football team? You definitely got a 5-a-side football team, but you got more than that.
Right. Well, so we're gonna have to decipher. Are we talking about European football or U.S. football?
The only football that we can talk about is European football. Well, given that you're not on this side, you're on this side of the pond. If we're recording this episode when I was in San Francisco, then we'd be talking about that other kind of football that people have to, when they have to put these helmets on, and run around.
The helmets on,
like Hulks,
violent and aggressive and full contact. Absolutely.
No comment.
I'll let Bobby speak to that. Go ahead, Bob.
Sure. So many people are quite shocked to learn that Michael and I have 8. Yes, that's right. I said 8 children. Yeah.
Well, it's lucky numbers, wasn't it? So 888.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite fortuitous. Actually, I think, what inspired us to create the NSFW model actually was inspired by our children. Our youngest really loves the online games like Roblox, Minecraft, and another parent, who's a friend of ours, was telling us about, this content that comes across these platforms. And, if you're not, as much as you would like to be, you're not watching your kid every second while they engage with these platforms. So since AI is what we do, what can we do to kind of put something out there to, help with, this problem? So that's when Michael started tinkering with, this particular model and put it out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, all I can say is congratulations. It's bad enough that you're number 2 in the top of the pop charts with AI models, but to actually manage that and to corral and Well, you're not coding, Michael. I know what you're doing, basically.
No, kids are great though. I mean, so and you're a parent, so you understand this. Anytime that, I think with kids, they don't let you get too high or too low, right? So no matter how great you think you are, your kids can always bring you down to earth. And, no matter how bad, no matter how bad of a day
it's
you're
very
having,
grounding. It's a very grounding experience.
absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely. But there's also the other benefit, right? So the pendulum swings back. So no matter how bad of a day you have, there are things that they can do that can completely shift your perspective and pick your day up. And you realize, like, hey, you know what? This is why I go through what I go through. This is what makes it work, right? And so that's what I think.
That's the thing is that you can see through their eyes, and they're very observational, very detail oriented. It depends, it's like I've actually had to try to get Ben and James, my two sons, on this podcast, but I've failed so far. But over my dead body, I will get them on this show before they retire, or before I retire. But yeah,
I think that would be a great show, interviewing your kids. Like that would be spectacular.
Well, no, the interesting thing was he was 14 when he came on the show. Mike, he's like, they call him the real Tony Stark. He's based in the US. He had two tech startups, CEO of two tech startups at 14. He's done work for the DoD, nice. stuff like that. He's a bit of a, child prodigy. He came on the show, fantastic episode a few years ago. And then I said, Ben and James, come on the show with Mike. Mike says he'll come back on with the show with you two. Oh no. What will our friends at school think? just like, what kind of reaction is that? Anyway, so I'm not giving up yet. I'm not giving up. Just imagine you two having a host of a podcast here with all your kids on. It'd be great. It'd be a very interesting conversation.
No, we'd have to get like what is it? The panoramic view camera for that one?
Yeah, the one that follows the person around. That follows the person that's speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
The harder part would be pinning them all down. But, most of our kids are actually adults now, and they all have their own things going on. So actually, just coordinating that many is very difficult.
Well, you just have to have some chairs, with rope. You just like tie them to the chair. That's my idea. Anyway, about Ben and James. No, but I think it's interesting you said about the origin story as well, because I think all I can say is I used to work for a big retailer and used to run their mobile business. The shock horror. I once got an incident through our call center where a young boy, what's his name, allegedly had bought a phone in one of our stores, a very famous brand in the UK, like number one retailer in the UK, and apparently they had this PORN images on their phone, right? So how could they have bought it in a store and suddenly these images appeared? So I had to do a massive investigation around that. Obviously, got into the news. We had to manage that process.
Oh no!
We found out the situation eventually that actually the boy admitted, because he'd said it was on the phone when he bought it, but obviously through discussions he actually admitted that he downloaded it from the internet. But obviously your technology would have identified that, etc., etc. So I can relate to the story. I can relate to the use case absolutely 100%, because that was like a very squeaky bum moment in my operations model about, okay, where does this obviously not the kind of thing that you want as a major brand in a business, and you've got to try and work out to manage that. So I can understand exactly, I can relate to because obviously the proliferation of images and bad actors and all that kind of stuff it's not going down, it's going up, isn't it? So you need some smart, intelligent tech to work it out and protect yourself.
And that's the rub, right? Maybe it's not something that you deal with on a daily basis, but when it comes up, it has the potential to have an impact that is huge. Like you said, you get bad press, do brand, reputation damage. There could be criminal investigations involved, working with law enforcement, trying to figure out preserving evidence. So any measure of control and getting in front of these types of situations, at the end of the day, becomes very, very valuable for companies, especially companies, that, have a reputation or a higher care of due diligence, a duty of care for employees or customers, things like that. So I think that's what this kind of solution is really trying to, just let's just have, some control over the situation and be able to react, in a less frantic way, that we have something to help us if this happens, which it likely will at some point.
Well, those are the shocking stats, right? Those are the shocking stats. Research across the globe shows that 50% of people in every organization have or are downloading or watching that type of content on work devices. 50%, and that's on average across the globe. Obviously, in some places it's higher, right? And I think, Bobbi spoke to, not just the brand or reputational damage, but a lot of people don't understand if there's certain aspects of that content and it comes up for investigation, authorities can seize or shut down your servers and things like that, throughout the timeline of the investigation. So if you're an organization and you have a database server and one of your developers or somebody in somewhere is, storing this type of data, well, they just basically shut down your business.
So it's catastrophic, potentially.
Right.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So one of the things we cover in these episodes, and obviously, I think you've had a chance to watch a few of them before you came on the show, was we have a concept called peaks and valleys. So we talked a lot about peaks, having 8 children, having 330 million downloads, living in Dubai, living in all the different exotic locations near the pyramids and stuff like that. So could you share some valleys? What's it been like? Has it been all plain sailing, or has there been any valleys in your journey so far that you want to share?
Oh, come on, that would be a fairy tale. We have no valleys, of course. So I guess the one that I can share that's a little bit more recent. In 2019, I decided I wanted to go back to school and get my MBA, and we were very fortunate. I got the opportunity to study at HEC Paris. So we moved and we lived in Versailles, and while I was studying, so
what, in the palace?
we were actually right across the street from the palace.
Right across the street from the palace.
The ghost of Louis XIV was calling me, Bobby, no, please move into the palace. It's okay.
So I promise the valley is coming. I know this sounds like a charmed story. So it was, anyway, very fortunate. However, right as I'm getting, finishing up my studies and getting ready to graduate is, February, March 2020. Here comes COVID. So instead of, graduating to all these, exciting new opportunities, all of a sudden, we're in lockdown in the middle of France, and, struggling to understand what is going on. Do we, I have no job because I've been studying. So we had to very quickly, make some decisions and go back to the US. And it was quite a struggle for a little while, going back into that environment. We hadn't, of course, set up the business. And so a lot of learning there, I guess, around just you really, really never know what's going to happen. Who could have imagined a black swan? I guess maybe 1920s flu epidemic survivors could have imagined it. For those of us that didn't, directly experience that. So you never know what's going to happen. So it's important.
Yeah, but I can think of worse places to be stuck. The Versailles in France is. I can think of worse places to be. Jesus.
This is true.
Anything from you, Michael? Any valleys from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, initially you kind of have to be mentally unstable to start a business. There's just something about, wanting to wrangle with, vendors and customers and argue and, things like that. I think there's a lot of probably just maybe not even hard times, but just, questioning yourself a lot. Like, is this the right decision? Are we making the right decision? Me and Bobbi have had a lot of those conversations. Is this the right way? Is this actually the best for our family, for our future, things like that? So I think that's kind of been the biggest thing for me. It's just, not having that corporate paycheck, that contract that ends, things like that would be, kind of number one. I think the other paradox for us specifically is the hype around AI. So, we started before ChatGPT, right? And so we're pushing, and, it's kind of, hard, to get a foothold. And then ChatGPT comes out and all you hear is AI. But the problem with that is, people fundamentally don't understand AI, even though there's all this hype and everything is going on and this, that, and other. And so a lot of times the hurdles for me, or the downs for me, is explaining to people that at the end of the day, AI in any form is nothing more than a probability, right? Whether you're talking about an LLM, it's just probable next best word, or, computer vision. It's this, I believe, is X with a confidence of X. It's never 100%. But, when you get
A
in
really
those meetings
clever
and you're
parrot.
talking to those people, right? When you get in those meetings and you're talking to those people and they want, say an OCR solution, and you tell them, okay, this is not going to completely replace, all of your analysts. Well, why not? It's supposed to blah, blah, blah. Well, because it's a complex system. It's not a rules-based complicated system. So there's going to be some offs. And so I think those are the downs for me, is when you talk to people that, you would think would have a certain level of acumen, and they completely don't. Well, we were told to get AI and this, and we wanted to replace this. Yes, but it's a probability. Well, that's not what we were told.
Yeah,
So
I
dealing with
suppose it's
that,
the thing that, yeah, in the last 18 months, 2 years, what do you mean? There was no life before ChatGPT. There was no world before ChatGPT. Before Sam Altman, like anointed us with ChatGPT, there was no
right,
world. It's like,
right.
Well, it was only
oh,
it
that's
was
right.
I will,
I'm gonna fall asleep now. So yeah, I'm gonna fall asleep.
no, I will tell you a funny story about that related to technology and kids. So I had to laugh. So we were talking to our kids a lot about just how spoiled they are with the technology they have. And so my daughter comes into me one day and she's like, Dad, what was life like in the olden days? And I'm like, what do you mean? Olden days? Like, I'm not that old. What do you mean? And she's like, in the olden days, back when you didn't have internet. And so, funny story, I actually took her to the library and showed her the card catalog and the Dewey Decimal System. And that was just mind numbing to
You
her.
remember that?
You actually had to look up a number and then go to the rack with the, yes. And so, it's one of those, like, what is life going to be like?
I thought you were going to say you're going to show her like a card system, where you have to put the program in through the cards, and then you're walking over to the computer, you're walking over to
No, that was
the big
before
ICL
me.
mainframe, and then you stumble and you drop the cards and you go, oh my god, I've just dropped
And
some
they're
all
all
the
shuffled.
cards and they're all out of sequence. Yeah, exactly.
No, that was before me, but just so that's one of the things that when you start talking about, like, the advancement in kids and technology, I think that those are the pick me up times.
Well, you see, what you should do is you should, So I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm half Yorkshireman, half Irishman, right? So what we should do is,
Okay.
the Four Yorkshiremen sketch with the Monty Python. This. Oh yeah,
Yes,
I used
yes.
to lick road clean with my tongue and all that kind of stuff. Used to go to bed half an hour before I went to sleep and all that kind of stuff. But basically, you should do a tech version of that. It's like, oh, when before mobile phones and before internet and stuff like that. You see, maybe we should do that, record that.
Oh, that would be
And
funny.
you can put it on YouTube, and then obviously all the kids will go, "Oh, really? That was a long time ago." And he says, "No, it's only 15 years ago."
Right. I mean, most people can't remember life before the iPhone. So
Sit down, children, and watch this video, and then you realize how lucky you are having an iPad.
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing those little snippets of the peaks and the valleys. So
Definitely.
in terms of the future, though, so given you've got already dominated the whole world, and obviously, the top of the pops, what's next? What's next for Falcons AI and Bobbi and Michael? Any thoughts on that?
Well, presently, as I mentioned, we're working on our V2 and bringing that as more of a commercially available product. So not open source, but I think that will allow us to continue feeding back and contributing to the open source community. So we'd like to continue doing that. So, I think this and other big, hairy problems really interest us. So if
Absolutely.
we could make, the kind of progress on this particular problem that, could actually make, 300 million downloads, yes, there's a lot of traction, but, how can we negatively impact the gross revenues of the porn industry? That would be great. But beyond that, we'll see. Like I said, we really like the big hairy problems like food security and homelessness and things like that, and how we can use the talents that we have, like in AI, to contribute and put forth something that might aid in a solution to these types of problems.
Absolutely.
Michael?
So one of those solutions Bobbi was
you?
talking about. Yeah. So one of the solutions that Bobbi was talking about was, so we also have a solution called Precise AG, and it's free for farmers. And it's a mobile application that allows farmers to take a picture of their chicken, and from the visuals, obviously it's not medical, from the visuals determine if the chicken has signs of bird flu, right, as a way of enhancing food security and contagion management, right, feed into contagion management systems of different governments to help curtail things, this, that, and other. I've recently gotten into a lot of looking at ways that AI can curtail these disinformation chains. So those routes, we actually have a model that I published a Hugging Face probably last year for fear mongering detection. Because if you notice, like, so much of the information going around, whether it's YouTube or podcasts or whatever, is just riddled with fear mongering. And I think, it's corrosive, to be honest. So, to Bobbi's point, to be able to use, our talents to kind of solve bigger, nastier issues, from food security to just basic, chipping away at human psychology problems.
Yep, we could go on for probably hours talking about
we can
some
go
of the
we can
things
go
that
very
we'd like
deep
to,
and very scary.
we'd like to work on.
No, it's I mean, all power to you. Because I think it's interesting. Cause, what I was thinking when you were just talking, both of you, was like a truth seeker. It's like a truth seeker mission to get to the truth, what's really true and what's not true. Because with this whole fake, and this, obviously we touched on some of the things you're doing. Because I think that's what people need these days, is the truth.
100%. Especially, as a parent, you would know this. I mean, you could think of 9 million horrors when you get out of bed in the morning that, you want to protect your family from. And so, you're talking about the downs earlier. I think, so there's a concept called the burden of knowledge in the medical profession, right? Why doctors make bad patients is because they know all the stuff that can go wrong. And I think, being in the AI space, there's so many things that I guess do not get presented, to the public for a good reason, right? You don't want to incite panic. But, I've been looking at just things from, just emergent communication patterns, right? How to determine if an AI starts talking to another AI in emergent communication to avoid human detection, right? Things like that. Is that possible? We already know it happened with the Facebook chats, right? The two models, they developed their own language. Human beings, the researchers had no idea what they were saying, right? And so what happens when you start deploying all these agentic systems into critical frameworks and somebody poisons just one of those agents and it starts deviating the overall goal? So looking at stuff like that, like these big, nasty problems that, maybe they're here, maybe they're not yet, but somebody kind of needs to, be thinking about this and have somewhat of a solution or a plan in place.
I mean, what you're talking about there is like tainting and pollution, pollution of the models, pollution, sewage. I suppose that's some analogies I was just thinking in words when you were talking there about the risk around that. Because, it's like, becomes then a self-perpetuating garbage in, garbage out kind of cycle, and then just gets worse and worse and worse.
Correct. And then another issue, they've talked about it a little bit lately, but, the use of synthetic data to train models. So there was research that came out probably about a year ago where they called it MAD, model autophagy disorder, where models degrade over time based on them eating their own. It's like feeding cows, sick cows, right? Of course, the quality of beef is going to go down. And I use that reference specifically because my grandfather always used to tell me, like, if you think there's a problem, then there's a problem. Don't eat stinky meat, right? If you're in a situation and it smells bad, get out of the situation. But so I think, feeding these models more and more synthetic data, if we start looking at them as entities, right? What happens when they start having psychosis? And we don't know because They're still just generating content and headlines and newsreels and social media posts. But it may not be the quality from a semantic level, but it may just be a quality from a different behavioral level that's degrading over time. Who's looking into that? Who's, protecting from that? So just looking at all of that stuff to see, where things can go wrong, where things can be improved, I think will be the jobs of the future that, nobody's talking about. People are, Microsoft just fired how many people? Why would you fire those people when you could just, recommission them to work on things that you're introducing into the wild? Just one man's opinion.
Well, not just that too. I think you have a lot of old problems that, you think, oh, somebody's handling that, certainly. And then you find if you dig into it, nobody's handling it. And there's a lot of opportunity still, even in really old industries, like what we talked about, food supply, but supply chain management, all over the place where, there are opportunities that some real good can be done.
Because it's not normally very digitized. It's very traditional the way it operates, and so they've not really embraced technology. But how do you embrace technology in a way that actually improves the process and creates better quality?
Correct.
And de-risks it. I mean, that thing about chickens and food safety, and my mind's racing now based on what you just talked about. And oh my God,
try not to think about it too much, especially if you have kids who love chicken nuggets.
No comment. This episode is not sponsored by blah 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 blah. Anyway,
right.
So I suppose, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I suppose it's a really interesting. I suppose for the audience, I suppose I'm just listening and saying that, hopefully the audience has got something out of today, and it's really fascinating what you're working on. Almost, much gratitude to Sam Benny for connecting us. I suppose, if people want to know more about what you're doing and how to collaborate with you, what's the best way of getting hold of you and getting some swag with Falcons on it? And I'm joking.
I'll send you some.
Yeah, we have our contact email on our website, which sends an email directly to us. You can also, reach out to us on LinkedIn, Michael or myself's profile, or from the Falcons AI page as well.
And I suppose my final question was about if any budding founders and couples are listening to today's episode, what would be your one piece of advice, I suppose, from each of you for if people are, couples thinking about going on a journey and being a startup founders together? Any thoughts on that?
From my perspective, I'd say the biggest thing that we had to learn, and I feel like we've done very well on it, but it was a learning for us in the beginning, was we might have a disagreement as colleagues, and or vice versa as a married couple, and to not let that spill over into the other realm, which maybe, sounds easy, right? But I think you have to be committed to your mission and what you're doing as an entrepreneur to understand that it has to be separate. If I'm mad at him, business still has to be done. So work me and him are still going to collaborate, and that just has to happen. So, Michael?
No, I think my only advice would be just do it. Just do it. It's going to either break you up or it's going to reinforce what you already have. So for us, I feel like it's reinforced what we have. And I'm happy that, I get to go to work every day and, discuss things with not only my best friend, but one of the smartest women I've ever worked with. So, and she's my wife. The benefits are there. It's not all sunshine and roses.
That's a big bonus. I thought it was all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns.
I mean, I don't know the lingo like that. But I actually have a question for you.
Wow, this.
So
go on then. Hit me with it.
Yep.
Go on. What's the question, Michael?
So, what would the Andrew Turner be like with a 1,000 IQ? What do you think you would do?
That's quite an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
What to do with a 1,000 IQ?
A 1,000 IQ. What do you think you would think about and do?
Well, I suppose it's that kind of, it raises that kind of humanity question, doesn't it? About is the essence of the intelligence at that level, is it destructive or creative? Yeah. What's the soul? What's the essence of that individual, and how does it influence what that person or that individual could do with that amount of intelligence? I would say
anything you wanted.
You can do anything you want. I think what I when I started this journey 7 years ago, I just wanted to if I wish this show was part of my journey earlier on. The reason why I'm doing it is because I want to have great people on that other people can learn from, right? So I'm trying to create content that people can actually learn and part of their journey, because I didn't have that. Yeah, because it was a gap, and so I had to learn. You could say they learned the hard way. Yeah. So by failure, and then picking yourself up and starting again, and yeah. So yeah, probably that will be my meta theme. I think around it was about, and my hope would be, I would make the right decision for humanity and for the planet if I had that amount of power, because it's back to the responsibility piece. With great power comes great responsibility. That will be my kind of thoughts on it.
Interesting.
Wow, there you go. You see, you flip the table then. That wasn't part of the script, Michael. That's what the hell? No, I'm joking.
Well, I just like to have really good conversations, and I like to get people's kind of, different thoughts. Because, when we're talking about AI, we're talking about super intelligence, and then, that factors into IQ. So I always wonder, like, if you were that smart, what do you think you would think about or try to do actually accomplish? So that's why I asked that.
It's a great growth question as well, to think about what is it I would really like to do and impact.
Well, just as a slight aside, I've actually started to create a digital twin of myself. I was on a crazy call with Guy Kawasaki, the guy that used to be the evangelist for Apple, at 3:00 in the morning one morning, because I got up early, stupidly checked LinkedIn, and he was doing LinkedIn Live, and he's going, "What, Andrew? What time is it in London?" I says, "It's 3:00 in the morning." What are you on this LinkedIn Live for? I says, "I just got off. It's that man thing. You have to go to the toilet, blah blah blah." And he was explaining how he's created his digital twin. He got all his content. So I'm in the process of doing that as well. So you heard it here first. But
you're the real Andrew, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm not the fake version. It's like yeah. But they'd be saying that with these latest robots. That's probably not a test actually. But anyway, anyway, we digress. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. That's been Bobbi Stattleman and Michael Stattleman from Cairo, and from, whereabouts are you in the US? East Coast somewhere, isn't it? That's right. She didn't tell you. She's somewhere down the eastern seaboard. It's not quite as...
I'm in South Carolina.
Oh, yes, South Carolina. Yeah, it's not quite as exotic. Well, it's more. No, it's not quite as exotic as Cairo, and definitely more exotic than where I am.
Is the only place Venus flytraps grow.
Wow.
So maybe a little.
You heard it here first. So for all you Venus flytrap finders, please check it out in South Carolina. Thank you for coming on the show today. And that was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Catch you later. Ciao,
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. My pleasure.
Take care.
Thank you.